How's it going, ladies and gents? Today I'm going to show you how to make more money in Phasmophobia. If you're not already, which you probably aren't, consider subscribing and don't forget to like the video if you find it helpful, or don't. The most important thing while trying to make money in Phasmophobia is to not die. I know this one is obvious, and for some of you, it might not be as easy as it sounds. We all die eventually, and it's part of the game. However, we can take away some risk by not playing out of our skill level. That 4 times multiplier on Nightmare mode, it does sound nice, until it's not. It does you no good if you die, and this is why I recommend staying at your skill level. Let's say, for instance, we're playing intermediate. You complete all of your challenges, you guess the ghost correctly, and you leave. You would make more money on intermediate this way than getting a perfect game in nightmare mode and dying. Not only is dying bad because you lose the money you invested in your equipment, but dying is bad for profit. If you die, your profits are cut in half and you don't get the multiplier from the difficulty you're on. But dying is also bad for experience points because every dollar you make is attributed to 1 XP. So if you die, you also don't get as much XP to level up and get better equipment to make your investigations easier. And even when you do level up, if you've been dying and resupplying, you won't have enough money to upgrade your equipment. Now that that's out of the way, my first real tip is to pay attention to your sanity. The higher your sanity, the longer you will have to safely investigate. Ghosts can only hunt when you get below a certain sanity, which could bring your investigation to an unsettling end, with the exception of a demon, which can hunt at any time. There are things you can do to monitor your sanity outside of taking sanity pills, which is why the sanity monitor, that most of you don't pay any attention to, is actually really helpful. Not only does it show you your sanity, it gives you an idea of how much longer you will be safe in your investigation, and it can also give you some evidence with certain ghost types like an Oni or a Moroi. Another thing you can do to try to prolong a safe investigation is to make sure the breaker is on as much as possible, because if you're in a room with the light on, your sanity will drain as much slower than in the dark. When you unlock the custom difficulty, it'll give you the ability to change the settings of your investigation yourself, where you can change the things to what you think will make your investigation easier or up the ante, and that's for you to figure out. But there is one setting that will make acquiring money faster and much easier, and it's to have the breaker on from the start. Shout out Insim. The reason for this being is that the house is already warm before you start your investigation, making finding the ghost room much easier and much faster, giving you and your team longer to investigate safely. If you don't have access to custom games, my recommendation for getting around that would be to turn the breaker on first. Make that your main priority. And on your way to the breaker, turn on as many main lights as possible. And by main lights, I mean rooms you're going to be in more often, like the lamp and hallway light on Tanglewood, including the kitchen and living room lights. The next thing I want to talk about are perfect games. Most of you might think that if you want to make more money quick, you would just go for a perfect game. But more times than not, it's not the case, and it's because of how time consuming they are. You're more likely to die in the process also. For the most part, I would advise not going for a perfect game. Although they are cool to achieve, they take too much time. On professional, for instance, if you complete a perfect game, you'll make around $1,700 given different media types. But on professional, if you guess the ghost and complete the challenges, you'll also make around $1,500 on average. It would take around 20 minutes to complete a perfect game as demonstrated, and it would take 10 minutes, give or take, to complete the objectives and guess the ghost. It takes about double the time to complete a perfect game, but you do not get double the amount of profit. You only get an extra $200 for double the amount of time. When I want to make money in Phasmophobia, my strategy is to play it safe with the custom setting of having the breaker on, playing on Tanglewood or Willow Street, and only completing the 3 objectives. My next tip would be to learn some of the basic ghost behaviors, like for instance, the Djinn cannot turn off the breaker, the Shade cannot blow out a firelight during a hunt, and a Wraith cannot walk through salt. This might be a controversial tip, but if a ghost is a little too active and you're a newer player, and your sanity is already low with not much evidence to go on, It might be best to just leave, especially if you're not good at handling hunts just yet, or training the ghost. Remember, the most important thing is to not die. We briefly touched base on the next thing I want to talk about, and it's what map I think is the best for making money quickly, and it's between two maps, Tanglewood and Willow Street. The reason being is these two houses are the smallest, and they have the lowest number of rooms, and they only have 2 floors. I don't think you can go wrong with either map. However, I do think Tanglewood is better for making money quickly, and here's why. The layout of the rooms is relatively closer together, and although both houses have basements, Tanglewood's only has 1 room versus Willow Street's 3, meaning it will be quicker to find the ghost room. The best tip I can give for money in Phas, if I haven't made it clear, is to stay alive. Dying stunts your progress, and although there is no shame in being level 30 with tier 1 equipment, you still probably don't want to be that guy. Play on an easier difficulty for as long as you need, there's no shame in having 60 hours in game and still playing amateur. My final tip is to not take the game too seriously. It is meant for you to die, to laugh, and have a good time.